Got to give the people what they want. The people want to be ready for this test next class. So let's get it. This is the test review. You write down the problems, you do them, and then check to see if you did them right. If you can do all these, you're ready for the test. 4.4, test review. So A, find the trig function values from a point. That's the first thing you need to be able to do. So find me all 6 trig functions for the point 5, negative 12. Cool. So draw me a picture and find the trig values. So let's see. Let's draw an x and y axis. X is 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5. Y is negative 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There's negative 12. So that point is about right here. Here's 5, negative 12. Okay? So that means we have this whole, this whole angle that looks like this. All right. So let's go ahead and draw a reference triangle. Well, that's going to go right here. There's the 90. Okay. And what do we know about this triangle? We know that this is 5 and this is negative 12. So let's figure out our hypotenuse. Let's see what we can do here. So I know that 5 squared plus negative 12 squared equals the hypotenuse squared. I got to figure out what this hypotenuse is. 25 plus 144 equals h squared. 25 plus 144, oh, look at that. 169 equals h squared, square root. I want to say that's 13. Yes, it is. Boom. All right. So now, what did it ask us to do? Find all 6 trig functions? I think we can do that. So let's see. Let's use SOHCAHTOA. And then let's know this is our angle that we're referring to. So we'll call this theta. So sine says opposite over hypotenuse. So sine is opposite, negative 12 over hypotenuse, 13. Cosine, right? So we have opposite, adjacent, hypotenuse. Cosine says adjacent over hypotenuse, 5 over 13. Tangent says opposite over adjacent, negative 12 over 5. What is the opposite? What is the inverse of sine? Cosecant. So that's going to be negative 13 over 12. What is the inverse of cosine? Secant. So that's going to be 13 over 5. And what is the inverse of tangent? Cotangent. So that's going to be negative 5 over 12. Boom. First one, done. All right, part B. Which quadrant does theta exist? And I'm telling you that tangent of theta is greater than 0 and cosecant of theta is less than 0. So first, this means right here, so hopefully you did it, but this means that the tangent is positive. So far, I could be in here, quadrant 1, or here, quadrant 3. Those are the ones where tangent is positive. Then it says the cosecant is negative because it's less than 0, okay? So I got to think about, well, if the cosecant is negative, well, what does that connect to? That means that the sine is also negative because cosecant and sine are related. So where is sine negative? Well, it can't be this quadrant because sine is positive. It has to be this quadrant right here. So we're looking at quadrant 3. Okay? So this would have been quadrant 3. All right, next up, find sine, cosine, and tangent when you have a cosecant of theta at 6 and a cotangent of theta that is negative. Okay, so first of all, let's figure out what quadrant we're talking about. If the cosecant is positive, right, because it's positive 6, that means that the sine is positive. If the cotangent is, what is this, negative, less than 0, that means that the tangent is also negative. It's less than 0. So I got to find the quadrant where sine is positive, tangent is negative. Sine is positive, tangent is negative. Oh, that looks like quadrant 1. No, lying. Sine is positive, tangent is negative. That looks like quadrant 2. Sine is positive, tangent is negative. So I'm going to draw this thing in quadrant 2. Boom, boom. And now what do I know? I know that the cosecant is, if I use SOHCAHTOA, right? I'm going to be somewhere in here, and I know that the cosecant is the opposite of sine, so that is the hypotenuse over the opposite, right? Cosecant is the inverse of sine, so that means cosecant is telling me hypotenuse over opposite. So the cosecant is 6, which is 6 over 1. So now I know that the hypotenuse is 6, and the opposite angle, if I have this angle, there's the opposite side, is 1. Okay? So now I got to keep working. I know that this is a negative number right here, because this is moving in the negative direction. So I have to do 1 squared plus some negative number squared equals 6 squared. So 1 squared plus, we'll just call this x squared equals 36. That should say 1 plus x squared equals 36. X squared equals minus 1 minus 1. X squared equals 35. So I know that x equals the square root of 35. So x is now the negative square root of 35, because remember, this is in the negative direction. All right. Now I can find sine, cosine, and tangent. Well, let's see. Sine is, going back to SOHCAHTOA, ooh no. Sine is the opposite over the hypotenuse. So the opposite is 1, ugly. The opposite is 1, the hypotenuse is 6. Cosine is the adjacent over the hypotenuse. So the adjacent is negative root 35, and the hypotenuse is 6. And tangent is the opposite over the adjacent. So tangent is the opposite, which is 1 over the adjacent, which is negative 35, which I can't keep, so I have to simplify it, times negative root 35 over negative root 35. And I end up with negative root 35, negative root 35 over 35. This negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. 35, root 35 times root 35 is 35. And, or if you can put a negative 1 root 35. So there are sine, cosine, and tangent. This would probably be the hardest version of this question that I can ask you. If you can do that, you are super duper good to go. But that's the hardest version of that. Okay? Moving on. Quadrant angles. You're going to need your unit circle. Find the sine and cosine and tangent of the cosecant of negative 2/3. So cool. Let's see. Here is negative 1/3. And here is negative 2/3. So this is the spot that I want to look at. Now I'm going to erase all of that because I'm just counting backwards. So I went negative 1/3, negative 2/3, right? So it left me at this piece right here. So I have to find the cosecant of negative 2/3. Well, the cosecant is connected to, right? It is the inverse of, what is it? Of the sine. So if the sine and sine on a unit circle, is it x or y? Sine is a y. So here's my sine. So the sine of this, of negative 2/3 pi, would be negative √3/2. All right? But they are asking me, because remember, sine is the y value. But they are asking me for the cosecant of that angle. So I have to flip it. So if that's true, the cosecant is the reciprocal of this, which would be negative 2/√3, which I have to simplify. Which equals negative 2√3/3. Boom. All right, again, I'm giving you the harder versions on this review so that hopefully when you got those, the test feels easy. Last thing, sketch and find me the reference angles for 5/3 pi and negative 45 degrees. Cool, so hopefully you did that. You're like, okay, 5/3 pi. Here's 1/3, here's 2/3, here's 3/3, here's 4/3. Here, this is where 5/3 pi would be, right? So there's 5/3 pi. If I draw this triangle right here and do this reference angle, well, how much space is it from here to here? And hopefully you recognize that this is 1/3 pi, right? Because 6/3, like if I have 5/3 plus this 1/3, that gives me 6/3, which is 2 pi. So my reference angle is 1/3 pi. All right, let's do a reference angle for negative 45 degrees. Negative 45 is like cutting this thing right in half. So here is a negative 45 degree angle. And if I was going to draw the triangle, I have pretty much the same thing. My reference angle is a 45 degree angle. The reference angle of negative 45 is still just a 45 degree angle. It's the same angle, nothing really changed. All right, I believe, yep, that is it. That is your review. Hope you guys are ready for the test. Y'all are gonna kill it. Mr. Bass, I'm out.